Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be about my two birth stories. I decided to just make a video about them both together, basically because my first daughter is 2 and I never made one of these videos for her, even though I always wanted to. I just kind of wanted to, and then I never did, and then I felt like it was like too late, and then so I just kind of felt weird about it. But now that I've had my second daughter, I knew I definitely wanted to make one of these videos, and I feel like I'm going to reference my first daughter's birth a lot in my second daughter's birth, so I figured I may as well just make a video with them together. I just put my first daughter down for a nap. Her name is Grace, if you don't know, and my second daughter, Chloe, is sleeping right there in the cradle, so hopefully she sleeps through, but she might make an appearance. So let's jump right in. So like I said, my first daughter, Grace, is 2 years old. Her birth was like a lot more surprising than Chloe's birth, so I'll try to just talk about Grace's and then talk about Chloe's after. So Grace's birth, I don't have any notes. Like Chloe's birth, I have all the notes written down, so I have like exact times and stuff like that, but I don't have any of that for Grace's. Like I said, it was 2 years ago. So she was born on August 30th at 5:21 p.m. The night before, so August 29th, that evening, I'd been having a ton of back pain. My back was super sore, but I didn't really think much of it. I thought of it just as like regular pregnancy back pain. Not that I'd had a whole lot during my pregnancy, but I don't know, I just figured it was just like a normal pregnancy thing. I remember sitting in the car. My husband had to run up to a friend's apartment to grab something, and I sat in the car and waited because I didn't want to walk up all the stairs. And I remember sitting there, and my back was so sore that like whole time I was sitting in the car, I just remember it being like really sore. And then when he came back down, he told me that the day before, our friend's grandmother had actually passed away, which is super sad, of course, but I've always heard that when someone passes away, a baby's gonna be born. So my first reaction was, oh my god, she's gonna be born like now, basically. That's just something I've always heard, so that was my first thought when I heard that. So it is kind of weird that she was born the next day, like pretty much like 24 hours later after we found out that. So then that whole night, so like the evening of August 29th, my back was super sore that whole evening. I had really bad pregnancy insomnia with both girls, so I didn't go to bed till like 2 or 3 a.m. And I slept in probably, I think, until like 7 or 8. I think it was about 7. My husband went off to work, and it was just a normal morning, and I noticed that I was having some cramping, which I remember just it being like just like light period cramps, and I felt like they were coming and going, but I wasn't really sure. I was totally able to sleep through them in the beginning. I really didn't think they were contractions. This whole labor, I did not believe that I was in labor until like I was at the hospital, but we'll get there. So excuse me, I had a bath. I think I had 2 baths that day. Basically, I just didn't believe that this was labor. I labored all day. About, I think, 11, I vlogged that day, and I think around 11, I called my doctor and said I was having some cramping, but it didn't have any rhythm or whatever. And being a first-time mom, her and I figured, like, okay, maybe tomorrow you'll have the baby. So she was like, okay, cool, thanks for the heads up, just enjoy your day, do whatever you need to do, you know, rest, walk, do whatever you need to do. So I just sort of hung out at home. I remember all I ate that day was cereal. That's the only thing that sounded good to me. And then around 2 p.m. it started to get more real. Not that I even really at that point believed that I was still didn't believe that I was in labor. But that's when I should have clued in that this was definitely labor. Around 2-3ish, the contractions started to get more real, but they didn't get super painful until probably closer to like 4ish. I was texting Greg all day, so he knew. That's my husband, by the way. But I felt like one, I felt like because this was my first labor that it would have to be longer. It's always long. First time moms, you always hear, have like super long labors. So I didn't want to like tell him to come home if it wasn't for real or it was like too early, and I really didn't want to go to the hospital if it was too early. So there was that, and I honestly felt like it wasn't painful enough for it to be like go time, basically. So around 4 I was like, no, okay, this is getting really painful. I think maybe we need to go to the hospital to get checked. So he was like, okay, fine, I'm on my way home. And then like where he had to drive home from work, there was like a spot where there was no cell service, so I couldn't get a hold of him for a little while, so I ended up calling my mom, and then they both, Greg and my mom, showed up at the exact same time. When I called my mom, actually, I called her and she's like, are you in labor? And I was like, yeah, I think so. So she left work, like her work let her leave early, and she actually went home to have a shower because she didn't realize that like it was go time kind of labor. And I texted her, I'm like, can you hurry? And then she came still in her work clothes. Yeah, like I said, her and Greg got here at the exact same time. So we got in the car and we drove to the hospital, which was awful. That was the worst drive to the hospital, the worst drive anywhere of my entire life. That was when the contractions were the most painful, I think, because I couldn't like move around and be free in like the way that I wanted to, basically. It sucked. It just really sucked. I hated that drive. I think I had maybe 4 or 5 contractions, maybe 3, between 3 and 5 contractions during the drive. It's about a 15-20 minute drive, but it felt so long. I don't even remember a lot of the drive. When we drove to the hospital with Chloe, there was parts of the drive that I was like, I don't even remember driving here in labor with Grace. I was so, the pain was like clouding my head at that time. So we get to the hospital, we park, we go in, and we kind of stand at the emergency room for a minute, and nobody was helping us. I was like, you know what, we know where labor and delivery is, let's just go. So we turn the corner and we see Greg's brother, who works security at the hospital, and he had just finished his shift, so he took us up. We went up and, or no, maybe we hadn't seen him yet. I'm not sure how that all happened, but because I remember going to the elevator, and the elevator did something weird and didn't really seem like it was gonna work, but I sure as hell was not walking up those stairs. So my mom got out and walked up the stairs just in case she could, you know, let somebody know we were stuck in there. So the elevator ended up being fine. We met my mom at the top of the stairs, and then yeah, Greg's brother let us in. There's like a side entrance, so we didn't have to walk all the way around. So he lets us in, we walk in, there's nobody in the labor and delivery, like no nurses, no moms, nobody. So we were like, okay, whatever, let's just pick a room. So we grabbed a room. Greg's brother Jesse went to go find the nurses, because I guess when there's nobody, like at our hospital, when there's nobody in the labor and delivery, those nurses go down and help in the ER. So he went and grabbed the nurses, they came up. I tried to go pee. I felt like I had to go pee, and the same thing happened with Chloe, and I went and sat in the toilet and nothing came out. So I guess it was just like the pressure. So the nurses came in, I laid down on the bed, they checked me, and I was 9 centimeters. I was 9 centimeters dilated. So we called the doctor. I think the nurses told Greg to call the doctor, like my doctor. And she was on her way, obviously, then what happened? So the rest is sort of just a blur. I think then at that point, I asked for, what do you call it, gas and air or whatever, I asked if there was, I can't remember exactly what I asked for, some kind of pain relief or whatever, but yeah, it was the gas and air thing, so I had that. And I remember not really understanding how to like work the breather thing. I thought that I had to like blow out, and they're like, no, just breathe into it. And it made me feel really dizzy, I think because I was in a lot of pain then, that I was like breathing in a lot of it. And so yeah, I remember it making me feel dizzy, and I remember asking them like, is it normal to feel dizzy, because I was really worried that I was having some kind of like allergic reaction to it, and they're like, no, that's normal. Then I don't think they even checked me again. I think they just assumed that within the amount of time that it took for the doctor to get there, that I would be 10 centimeters, because obviously labor to that point had gone pretty quick. Yeah, like I say, I don't really remember, like this was 2 years ago, so it is kind of hard to remember all the little details, but my doctor came in and I remember being so relieved hearing her voice. I couldn't see her, she was still behind the curtain, but she said, said, "Hi Sally, I'm here, I'm just gonna get ready," and it was like, like this wave of relief to hear her voice and know that she was here, everything was gonna be okay. Obviously everything would have been fine, like the nurses were great, they would have been able to handle whatever, so it would have been fine, but I was just so relieved to hear her voice and know that she was there. So she comes in, and I don't even think she put scrubs on, and maybe she checked me then and she was like, "Yep, you can push," and then I actually pushed for like 45 minutes, which I think that like is sort of in the middle. I've heard of some moms pushing for like 2 hours and some pushing for like not long at all. So yeah, it was like 45 minutes, and then my doctor ended up breaking my water because it hadn't broken, and we were trying for an on-call birth, or however that's pronounced, but once she broke my water, things went way more faster, and I think she was born in like a couple more contractions. The one thing that I do have to say though about that labor, I just heard Chloe making noises, I think it might have been the, like, I had so much the gas and air, like the pain medication, that when I was pushing, I couldn't really tell the difference between a contraction and not a contraction. It just hurt all the time. There was just like pressure and pain, and it just hurt all the time. So I think that, along with just not knowing how to push because it was my first delivery, is why it took 45 minutes. But yeah, I really remember that, just like not knowing really when a contraction was happening versus when it wasn't, and I had a hard time with that, and I just remember that being a big thing. And then I also remember my doctor saying, "Okay, soon," like I don't know if she said like her head is about to crown or something, but I remember saying, "Soon I'm gonna tell you to stop pushing and then push again," or something like that. But I remember telling me like, "Soon I'm gonna tell you to stop pushing," which is like to let your body basically do it so that you don't tear. But I didn't understand that. I didn't understand the importance of actually stopping pushing, and in the moment I was like, no, like I want her out, like this hurts basically. And so I didn't really listen to that, not intentionally, like not like F you, I'm not gonna listen, but just in the moment I couldn't listen really, and I didn't understand the importance of why I needed to stop pushing. So I did end up having a tear, like a 2nd-degree tear, I think, and so I got stitches, and then I actually ended up with like hemorrhaging, is that the word? Like I had excess bleeding, so they did end up having to give me an IV, which I was super mad about, but obviously my health is more important than like a stupid little IV. So I had an IV with some kind of drug. I do not remember what it was because it was 2 years ago, and I honestly didn't even really pay attention when they told me. And then eventually that stopped. It wasn't really a big concern, but it is something to note because that happened. And that's pretty much the birth story of Grace. It was super fast. I think it was considered, I forget the word for it, but like a really fast birth. There's like a technical term for it, because total labor was less than 12 hours, because unless you count labor starting the night before with that back pain, I don't really know, but contractions started around 7 a.m. and she was born at 5:21. So that is definitely super quick for a first-time mom, well, let alone any mom, but like exceptionally quick for a first-time mom. But yeah, there's some kind of term, maybe I'll put it on the screen, I'll look it up, I can't remember what it is, but it's with a P, preptidius, I don't know, there's some word for the type of labor that I had, and I guess it's considered the same for the kind of labor that I had with Chloe, but her labor was a little bit different, but I will get into that in her story. So I think that is all I have to say for Grace's labor and delivery story. It kind of felt just really quick and like a once over, but it was 2 years ago. I don't have a whole lot to say, so I hope you enjoyed that, and I'm going to jump into Chloe's story now. So apparently Miss Chloe wanted to be here for her story. Hey? Just woke up all grunty. So let's jump into your story, hey miss? Alright, so for Chloe's birth story, she's going to be super grunty because she just is all the time. So hopefully that doesn't annoy you. But for Chloe's story, I have notes on my phone, so I'm going to be referring to these a lot more than just memory. So, you little miss, basically with her, everyone told me get to the hospital right away because it's going to be fast, and you know, I assume so too. But it was a little bit different with her. So both girls were born on Tuesday, actually. I don't think I mentioned that in Grace's story, but it's a little more relevant because I have things written down like Sunday, like I have days of the week written down. So Tuesday she was born. She was born on Tuesday at 8 a.m. So on Sunday, she's born on the 18th. My birthday is the 15th, so I think that was Saturday. So the day after my birthday, Sunday, I was kind of uncomfortable in the morning. Honestly, I wrote down slightly uncomfortable in the AM, and I don't really remember how I felt, but I started around 1:30 in the afternoon having like random contractions that weren't really like consistent. That's the word. They weren't really consistent, like with any sort of like time pattern, I guess. And they were definitely more painful than the Braxton Hicks, but they weren't like they weren't to the point that I knew they were gonna get. So around 5 p.m. they were still happening, but they were a little bit more consistent, but not like a consistent every 10 minutes. Like they were, you know, sort of like 5 minutes apart, and then 10 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 5 minutes, that sort of thing. Do you want this? Oh, a big yawn. Big yawn. And then I did end up texting my doctor that night around 8 p.m. because everyone told me get to the hospital, like it's gonna be super quick, blah blah blah, but I wasn't having consistent contractions, so I felt like it couldn't be real. Just like, and you know, I was so worried that I wasn't gonna be able to recognize labor again because I didn't recognize it the first time around. I'm just gonna go right back to sleep. So yeah, I ended up texting her and just gave her a heads up, and she said basically just, okay, try and get some sleep, maybe I'll see you tonight, maybe I won't. And then around 9:30 they started slowing down. I wrote that they're 20 to 30 seconds long and 10 plus minutes apart. So that is definitely where they started like spacing out more, like became more than 10 minutes apart. And at that point I kind of figured, okay, they're slowing down. I don't think it'll be tonight, if not for a few more hours. So I did try and get some sleep, and I was able to sleep through them for the most part. I wrote down at 10 p.m. that she was a wiggle bum, so yeah, I do remember that she got really active, which made me also kind of think that probably won't be tonight, because usually they say your babies are less active before they're born. Little miss obviously just wanted me to hold her because now that I've picked her up, she's totally passed right out, which is fine. I guess she can be a part of this video. It's her story anyways. So then I slept from 12:30, like midnight, till 4:30 in the morning. Is this the right days? Yeah. So yeah, I slept from 12:30 till 4:30 in the morning. Then I got up, I think I went to go pee. This back. And then I came back to bed and I fell asleep. I was awake for a while and then fell back asleep for a little bit, and then until Greg's alarm went off, and then we hummed and hawed whether he should go or not, and he did end up going. Throughout the day, my contractions started to get more painful than they had been, but again, not really closer together or super consistent. So this has already been now, yeah, like it's already been 24 hours that I've been having contractions, which is just so weird to me. This is how I expected Grace's labor, my first labor, to go, and so I was so confused. Why is this labor not going fast like the last one? I was actually starting to get frustrated because I was tired of having contractions for 24 hours, even though they weren't super painful. I could talk through them, but they were still annoying contractions, right? So at 4:50, like PM, I lost some of my mucus plug, and I was like, yes, things are progressing, this is good. I got Greg to go out and get some spicy curry, like Thai curry for dinner, which because I've heard that spicy food can encourage labor. This is super TMI, but we had sex that night because I was done being pregnant, and I was like, okay, we're gonna do everything we can to get this baby out. So then that night, so that was Monday. Monday, basically had contractions all day. And then, so that night I slept from about midnight till 3. I know it sounds like I'm going to bed so late, but I had pregnancy insomnia, like I mentioned, with Grace. And so I just never could get to sleep. And then especially when the contractions, like, I could talk through them, but it was hard to like get a good sleep through them. So I did sleep for a few hours, and then the contractions, sorry, I know this is kind of annoying that I keep looking at my phone, but it was a month ago. She's almost a month old. I don't super remember all the details. The contractions were definitely starting to hurt more at 3 a.m. and I couldn't sleep through them. So I sat up in bed for a few contractions, hoping that like, basically I sat up to see if they would like, if they would change or go away versus like laying down or whatever, and they didn't really. They were still painful. So at 4:30 in the morning I got up and had a shower because I figured, well, either this will help me feel better or I may as well just get my day started, because either this is going to be baby day or this is going to be another long day of contractions. So I went and had a shower, and then the next thing I have written down is 7:30. So let me just think. So 4:30 I had a shower, and then I got up. I think I did my makeup next and got dressed, and then I went and made myself some toast, had a little breakfast because I figured I should eat something if this is for real. And I remember I watched, I'm pretty sure it was KK and Baby Day. I watched some YouTube, and then about, it was 6 or 6:30, I can't remember exactly, I went and woke Greg up because they were so painful that I was feeling really uncomfortable and I wanted him there with me. So he didn't go to work this day because this was Tuesday and I had a like regular checkup appointment booked for 9 or 9:30. I can't remember exactly. I think it might have been 9:30. So because I'd been having contractions consistently, I guess consistently, for like over 24 hours, I didn't really want to drive. So Greg called his boss the night before and booked the morning off so that he could take me to the appointment so that I didn't have to drive, especially with Grace. I didn't want to drive with her. You know, it was one thing for just me. I felt like I could manage, but I preferred for him to drive me. So he was planning on having the morning off anyways. So I woke him up at 6 or 6:30 and he came out here and sat with me, and then about 7, just before 7, I texted my mom and was like, hey, are you up? We're thinking we should probably leave. And she was like, yep, I'm up, I'll get ready and then come down. She's like, do I have time to do my hair and makeup? And I was like, yeah, I think so. And then I texted her a few minutes later and was like, no, I think you should probably just come now. It is go time. So this is sort of when the labors kind of became the same. Once it, I think from like 4:30 in the morning, once it like really started, then it was the same as Grace's. I don't know why, I just kind of had the weird contractions go for like days before. Yeah, I don't know, there's kind of like their labors were like switched. Like Chloe's was more like first time labor and Grace's was more like a second time labor. But anyways, then we left the house at 7:30 in the morning. At 7:45 exactly on the dot, I'll never forget where we were just coming around a specific corner, like 2 minutes from the hospital, and I was texting with, at this point I was texting with, or just before, I was texting with the like the nurses in the labor delivery department or whatever. They have a cell phone that you can call or text and, you know, give them a heads up that you're coming in kind of thing, or you can call them if you have like concerns or questions like, should I come in, should I not come in? So I texted them and said, hey, I'm coming, I'll be there in about, you know, 20 minutes. and she had texted me and asked if my water broke, and I said it hadn't. And then at 7:45 exactly on the dot, I felt my water break for the first time because the doctor had to break it with Grace. Don't poke yourself in the eye. So I felt like a pop, I guess, from the inside. First I felt that and I was like, that was weird. What was that? Kind of concerned, you know, it kind of sounded like, kind of felt like a bone breaking maybe, or I don't know, it just felt really weird, and I was like, what was that? And then right after, but like I felt that, and it was enough time for all these little thoughts to go through my brain, and then it was like a gush of warm fluid. I was sitting down, so I don't know, luckily I had put a towel on, like on the car seat, like to cover it up, because I was worried that that would happen. And it was warm, and definitely I could see how you would confuse that with pee, but for me it was quite a gush, but I don't know how much it was because I was sitting down, so it's not like it made a puddle on the floor or anything like that. But it felt like a lot. I don't think I'll ever forget that pop and gush feeling, and I'm pretty sure I have heard other moms describe that like pop feeling. It must be like the bag breaking. So anyways, my water broke, and then I texted back the nurse. I said it just did, and she said, okay, come on in. And I was like, yeah, I'm on my way. So we walked into the hospital. Greg said we walked in at 8:50. So I guess it took us 5 minutes to get from the hospital, or from the corner where my water broke, park, walk up, like walk in again. We stopped at the ER because I thought you're supposed to sort of, you know, give them a heads up on who you are. The lady just kind of looked at us and looked back at our paperwork and was like, whatever. And I was like, clearly I'm in labor, like, could you not just tell me, just go up, or, you know, say something other than just like, eh. So that was annoying. I remember feeling the exact same way that I did with Grace's labor when I looked at that lady behind the glass. So anyways, I'm like, okay, Greg, let's just go up, just like we did last time. So we go up, we walk in. We had seen Jesse from outside the window. We're like, hey. He was working again. He was actually working this time though. And he was just on like a break. He was grabbing, like, there's a little like bakery or whatever that's a like coffee shop within the hospital. So he was there. We saw him through the window, and we met him at the elevator, and he went up with us and let us in again, the little side entrance door. And so we walk in, and the nurses are like, oh, are you Sally that I was just texting with? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, okay, I'll have you set up over here. And we're like, great, blah blah blah, this, like, who's your doctor, confirm. And my doctor was actually, I had been texting with her, I forgot to mention that I was texting with her earlier in the morning, and said, you know, hey, I think this is really happening this time. We're thinking about leaving for the hospital pretty soon. And she's like, okay, great. I'm in the hospital already, preparing to help with the C-section at 8. And I was like, okay, perfect. So I knew she was at the hospital, so I basically after that wasn't too concerned with like texting her, because once we got to the hospital I knew that the nurses or whoever else would be like, okay, you know, call her up on the little whatever, like PA system kind of thing. So we walk in there and they're like, yep, and I was like, yeah, she's already here, she's supposed to help with the C-section today. And they're like, okay. And I guess one of them left and went and called her. And the nurse is like, okay, I'll just check you. And I was like, okay, I just want to try and go pee first, because I always like, I'm afraid of like peeing on them when they check me, I guess. So, and she was like, okay, don't have a baby on the toilet. So I tried to go pee, and again, nothing came out, just like last time with Grace. But I guess it's that pressure feeling, but I felt like I had to go try. So I did, and then, you know, got up on the bed and checked me, and she took a lot longer to check me than, like, my eye is itchy, than the nurse did with Grace. I don't know why, and I remember her saying something like, oh, you're tough. And I took it in that moment as, like, you're tough to check. Like, I can't quite figure out how far along you are or whatever. Like, that's the way I took it in the moment. But I think she meant, like, holy crap, you're really progressed. You're, like, a strong woman. You're a strong person. I think that's more what she meant, is you're really tough. And so, basically, yeah, we got to hospital at 8:50. And she basically said there was a lip, I think, like, I was basically, like, I guess the best way to describe it is like 9 3/4 centimeters dilated. Like I was never told, oh, you're this many centimeters. She just said to one of the other nurses, because there was 2 nurses there, like something like, oh, there's just a bit of a lip left. And then one of them asked me if I like was feeling pushy or something, or maybe that was after the doctor came in. But then, you know, a few minutes later, like basically right after, my doctor walks in and she's like, hey, blah blah blah, how are you? And she was all dressed in white because she was ready to go into a C-section basically. And so then I think she checked me, or maybe she didn't. I think she asked if I was feeling pushy. Let's see, do I have anything else written down? No, I don't, until she was born. So then the nurse said, you know, oh, like there was just a lip, and then I remember the doctor saying something about like, oh, well, she's feeling pushy, the lip is probably gone. Like she can, and then, yeah, because then I remember like they're all fussing around getting everything ready for the baby. And the doctor wasn't even sitting, you know, down at the end of the bed yet. She was sort of, you know, maybe putting her gloves on, or she was like over here. If I'm laying in the bed like this, she was over here, and I remember her saying, just go ahead and push, it'll feel so good to push. I remember her saying that, and me, I was kind of like, but you're not there, like, shouldn't you be down there? That was just something that, you know, I remember that moment. And I pushed, and then I pushed again, and so this doctor was really like, not concerned, but like really didn't want me to have stitches for like my own well-being. And so I had told her about how with my last delivery, I think the reason I tore is, well, one, because she was a fairly big baby, but I think because I didn't stop pushing when the other doctor told me to. So that was something that we had really focused on, and she told me that she tells people to pant, and she pants with them. So I push, and then I pushed again, but I don't know, anyways, so I push again, and then she tells me stop pushing, and she like gets right up in my face and pants in my face. I don't know if she normally gets in people's faces, but because it's kind of like a thing that like, okay, you like make sure you listen to me, she got right in my face and panted, and I panted, and then she was born. She basically slid right out. And some of the biggest differences though, like, so, oh yeah, I forgot, before she came in, before the doctor came in, when she checked me, and then, yeah, they were kind of all fussing around, I did ask for the gas and air again, and I had just like a couple, I don't know, inhales of it, I guess you would say, and I remember asking Greg to get some water because that stuff makes my throat feel so dry, and I expected to be pushing longer, so that's part of why too I wanted the water. So he ran and got that, and I had some water, and then, yeah, and then when it was time to push, my doctor told me to put that away, and so I only had like a few inhales of it. I had a whole lot less, not that I used it a ton with Grace, but I used it very, very, very minimally this time around, and I'm really, really glad about that, because I was so much more aware, not that I was not aware with Grace, but I was so much more aware with Chloe, and I felt her, like, obviously you feel the crowning, I felt her crowning, but I felt like, then, I don't know, it's hard to describe. So I felt her crowning, obviously, and then the panting, and I guess that's when the shoulders are coming out, I think, I can't remember, but I felt her come out, like, I could feel her head, and then I felt her body and was like, oh, that's her body coming out. Like, I don't know, it kind of sounds weird to say it out loud, but it's something that I didn't experience with Grace, maybe because she was bigger, or I just wasn't as aware, or because it was a first time mom, I just wasn't even thinking about that. And then, yeah, she came out, and they put her on my stomach. I remember not wanting to pull her up because I've heard of cords being short, and my very first thought, and the first thing I think I said out loud is, oh my god, she's so tiny. And she was. I was kind of worried. I was like, maybe I just forget how tiny my first baby was, but Grace was 8'3" when she was born, and little Miss Chloe was only 6'1", so she was definitely a tiny baby. She still is tiny. So yeah, I think that's all. Let's check the list to see if I missed anything. So yeah, my doctor counted it as 1 push, but I would say it was more like 2, but for some reason she doesn't really count the first push. But even 2 pushes, like, she literally gave me the best labor, other than the like day of contractions that did nothing. I'm still not sure what that's all about. And then I wrote down, she breastfed for like half an hour, 15 minutes after she was born, and then she slept 2 hours. After that, sorry, did that scare you? And that's basically all I have about our birth story, I think. It was such a good labor. It was so surreal. Greg and I kept saying that, like, did that really just happen? Like, this is so surreal. She's here. Like, I don't know, with Grace, it was more exciting. Like, not saying anything bad about Grace's labor. It's just this, Chloe's labor. It was very, very surreal. I don't know how else to describe it. We just, like, couldn't believe she was here. I don't know. And it went so smoothly and so quick. Not that Grace's didn't, but yeah, I don't know. It was such a nice labor. So yeah, because she was so tiny, oh, what a face. I didn't tear at all. I didn't have to have any stitches, so my recovery has been absolutely amazing. Hey? But I think that's all I have to say about my 2 girls' birth stories. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love to hear how your birth went if you're a mom, so definitely leave a comment down below. And we would love to read that, wouldn't we, Miss Coco? Hey? So I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe to our journey. I'll try and turn her around here. So thanks for listening to my story. Thanks for listening to my story. You're gonna wake up and be hungry any minute, aren't you? So yeah, thank you so much for listening or watching, whatever, and I hope you enjoyed. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.